What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another exciting edition of Cinema Club. I believe this is episode number 4. Could you be more excited? I certainly couldn't. This is Cinema Club. We're here to talk about the brand new Gary Oldman film, Darkest Hour. That's right, it is the film about Winston Churchill being appointed the Prime Minister in World War II. And it was a very interesting film. Basically because I'm interested in the whole World War II topic. I've never really been the most, the best person to talk to about history, unless you talk about wrestling or movies, I guess. I'm good with that sort of history, but in terms of world history, I'm not the best. I know a little bit, I did it in school, but it always really interested me in the school, doing topics about the wars and doing topics that, changed the world, But I guess when I was in school, especially my later part of school, I was just kind of thinking more about, things that I was going to do when I left, so I focused on that sort of stuff. I didn't really think of, the history side of things. I kind of wish I did, because I do find it really interesting. It really intrigues me, a lot of the World War II stuff especially. I don't know why, it just always has. Things like Dunkirk and Hacksaw Ridge and even Wonder Woman from last year that deal with sort of war-like themes, I really, really enjoyed. And this film is a different type of war film. It's not your stereotypical, okay, we're on the battlefield sort of thing. It's more of a in the war room, talking about plans and strategies going forward. So it was interesting, I suppose, in terms of that. But that being said, I did find the film quite slow. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I guess it's a factual film, it's a biography, so... This film is nominated for a lot of Oscars, and that, was the main reason why I wanted to go see it, because I wanted to see, the buzz around the picture and Gary Oldman's performance. And if you ask me if this is the best picture of the year for the Oscars, definitely not, but that doesn't, my opinion obviously doesn't matter. But in terms of performance-wise of Gary Oldman, he should be up there, definitely, because this was absolutely, one of the best performances I've ever seen of him, because he is literally unrecognisable in this role. You can't even... I didn't know it was him, I did know it was him because obviously I'd studied the film, but when you look at him in the film, there's no Gary Oldmanisms, there's no things that, Commissioner Gordon has done or whatever, It's all, I say that as if Commissioner Gordon's what Gary Oldman's known for, but you know what I mean, it's like that's a big role compared to, Winston Churchill, The reason I loved this film was because, or not loved this film, the reason I enjoyed this film, because I felt as if I was watching a documentary. I felt as if I was watching a biopic of Winston Churchill, of this plan, when the soldiers were trapped on Dunkirk. What were we doing here? We were listening to a somewhat delusional man by the name of Winston Churchill, who was coming up with strategies and who was getting the victory sign wrong. He was doing this instead of this, which had quite a funny moment in the film where Lily James's character, who is awesome by the way, I love Lily James, I thought she was amazing in Baby Driver, super duper crush on her in Baby Driver, and she was great in this as well. And she kind of explains that means up your bum, and that means victory. So that was a nice funny moment. There was some funny moments, some nice one-liners from Winston Churchill. I'm sure he was quite a sassy young man, or old man. Or old man, Gary Oldman. That was terrible, Jesus. But I'm sure he was quite quirky back in the day, coming up with these silly phrases, and he was a bit unsure about social situations as well. And I can't imagine the world back then, we're so spoiled these days, that we're so, everything's so exposed. We've got Twitter, and we've got Facebook, and we've got YouTube, and we've got television, all those things were around back then. The most intimate people could be to someone like the President of the United States or Winston Churchill would be hearing them make a sort of statement over the radio or even on the television. Whereas now we, if we want to harass Donald Trump or whatever, or Theresa May, we can go on Twitter and do it, you know what I mean? But that wasn't the case back then. You just had to kind of live with what you... And I mean, you obviously still need to live with that sort of thing now, but, there's more ways we can deal with it now. Back then, when in a war, and... There's obviously not much that we could have done to protect ourselves other than just sort of bide our time and hope that government and parliament and the leaders of the world have got us covered. So that's what this film is about, to see how one of the strongest personalities in the world at that time deals with the sort of pressure of being Prime Minister during World War II. I really enjoyed the film. I did think it was quite slow at times just because of the nature of the film. It's going to be quite slow. If it's going to be a lot of strategizing and planning of what they wanted to do. I like the sort of nods to Dunkirk and stuff, because the fact that I did see Dunkirk last year, it's like, oh yeah, I know what they're talking about now. I would have been a bit confused. And even when I saw Dunkirk last year, I was a bit confused of what we were all sort of worried about and why we were trapped, These two films, they don't, they're both happening at the same time. They're not necessarily, different parts or whatever, or sequels or whatever, but they're both happening at the same time, so it's quite interesting to point that out. The best scene in the film is, or my favourite scene in the film, is where Churchill is like, fuck it, I'm just going to go. And he leaves a taxi. He was going to do some sort of press conference, and he takes the underground to Westminster. And just like every other sort of bystander, he talks to a little girl at the station and goes on the train, and people are just like, oh my god, there's Winston Churchill, you know, there's our Prime Minister right there. And it shows you how human these people are, you know, they are just people, you know. You see famous people, actors, wrestlers, presidents, and you just think them as gods and these mythical creatures, but they're just people. And that this scene in particular was great. That Winston Churchill was someone who, you know, nowadays in this sort of generation we look back on as a historical figure, but he was just a person, you know. He was just a guy taking the subway, and he's talking to the British people, and he's saying, how are we, you know, how are we feeling from an outsider's point of view? And they're like, yeah, we're good, we're optimistic, we're hopeful. And that's exactly what he needed to hear at that time. It gave him a little boost, you know. And we ended up, you know, declaring war and peace, and over the next few years everything else happened, you know. So, and eventually the war ended, you know, a few years later. So it's a film that really, you know, educates you as well, but I feel like you need to watch it a few times to really get all the facts and all the ideas that are presented to you. It is quite a slow film, so I don't know if I could watch it numerous times, but I enjoyed it overall. It's definitely not a best picture. It's not as good as Three Billboards or, you know, the other films I'm sure that are up for it, but Gary Oldman's performance made you think that you were watching a biopic and made you think you were watching a documentary. So with that said, he easily could win that and no complaints, you know. Great performance. Gary Oldman is one of the best out there in the world that maybe ever lived in our generation. So let's go and watch this film and support British history, and support Gary Oldman for this amazing performance. I hope he gets what he deserves. So thank you for watching. This is Cinema Club episode number 4. I recommend Darkest Hour. Not as good as the other ones we've seen this month, apart from The Commuter. And yeah, check out the other film reviews of Cinema Club, and check out the other videos here on CM42 TV. I hope you are all enjoying, and subscribe for more content. That would be awesome. Leave a comment if you thought the movie was good, bad, indifferent, whatever. Like the video if you liked the video. Share it with a friend. And you can follow me on Twitter at CM42 TV, and my podcast, The Good The Bit Podcast, is also available on Twitter at The Good Bit Pod. Until next time, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.